We're starting a fresh series of studies today in the book of Nehemiah, though really it's a sequel to Ezra, as we shall see. So if you can, please open your Bible at Nehemiah chapter 1, verses 1 to 4. We know very little about Nehemiah. In fact, all we know about him is found in the book that bears his name. However, as cupbearer to the king, he was a very important person, since Ahikar, an earlier cupbearer, had also been the prime minister. With responsibility to test the king's food and wine to demonstrate it was not poisoned, it's obvious how the cupbearer could become a person with enormous influence. The events described in this chapter probably took place in 445 BC. This was about 13 years after Ezra had first appeared in Jerusalem, and Ezra chapter 4 verses 17 to 23 is probably a sequel. The first 4 verses of chapter 1 provide the key to understanding the whole of the book. 3 words in particular are important. First, there's the word remnant found in verse 2. This had been used by the prophets to describe the people of Israel who would return from the exile in Babylon. They were the people who, through whom God would fulfill all his great promises. You might consult especially, for example, Isaiah chapter 10 verses 20 and 22. Secondly, the same verse mentions the walls of Jerusalem. It was these walls that God had promised to restore so as to bear testimony to his sovereignty and grace. Again, we see this in Isaiah 54 verses 11 to 12, and in chapter 60 verses 10 and following, and especially verses 14 and 15. Thirdly, we notice that Nehemiah uses the word reproach, a term used by God to describe his people under judgment in, for example, Ezekiel chapter 22 and verse 4, but a judgment which he had promised to remove. Again, I refer you to Ezekiel in chapter 35, verses 15 and 30. This all shows that Nehemiah's burden was not to see a beautiful building restored, or even a desire to see national pride re-established. He longed to see God fulfill his promises and glorify his name. He was greatly burdened when God's call was in decline, and he did something about it, as we shall see.